Hi, dear friends. I am Glenn Hernandez from the principal investigators, one of the principal investigators of Andromeda Shock, Pegasus. And it's a pleasure to greet you, everybody, and thank you, of course, expressing my gratitude for your participation in Pegasus. I want to the intention of this video is just to try to help the national coordinators to, let's say, debulk the information about what the study is, what's designed for, etc. You know that after Andromeda Shock 1, it was clear that capillary refill time is a very, I would say, inappropriate resuscitation target and a monitor for the management of septic shock. But after that, we got the feeling that it was needed to take a step forward and try to, to design and test a complementary strategy, but from the hemodynamic point of view. I mean, on one side of the coin, you have CRT. CRT is a perfusion variable that is easily measurable. You can assess CRT in the sub-Saharan area versus the Mayo Clinic, etc., everywhere. And it's costless and universally available. But we didn't have at that moment, let's say, a similar variable from the hemodynamic point of view that required no technological device, nothing that, and with which you could, after the admission of patients with septic shock to the ICU, take the initial decision, fluids or adjusting vasopressor. That is the main question when the patients arrive with septic shock, independently if you intubate or not, etc. So we started to think, and then we came up with some signs that are provided for free, let's say, by the simple monitor, where you have an arterial line, then you have beyond map, you have pulse pressure, of course, and diastolic blood pressure. And from a theoretical point of view, of course, pulse pressure is the main determinant of pulse pressure is stroke volume. This is broadly speaking, of course, physiologically this is correct, but there are many, let's say, remarks that you could do to this limitation to assume that pulse pressure is exclusive. This is not, of course, exclusively determined by stroke volume, but it is the main determinant. So broadly speaking, again, if you have an patient in septic shock at very low pulse pressure, let's say 80, 60, then it is highly probable, especially in early phases, that you have a profound hypovolemia, at least relative, preload, cardiac output, etc. And maybe this patient should be directed to fluid responsiveness assessment. We are in the optimization phase in the ICU and give fluid boluses, etc., to try to improve systemic blood flow in patients with persistent hypoperfusion, with abnormal CRT, for example, after initial resuscitation at the pre-ICU level in the emergency department, etc. But if you have on the contrary, or conversely, you have a normal pulse pressure or high, let's say you have a hypotensive patient with 90/40 or 90/30 or 80/30, whatever, you have a normal pulse pressure, but extremely low diastolic blood pressure, vasoplegia, and this is the hallmark of septic shock, of course, but this patient probably requires early vasopressor or adjusting vasopressors to act on vascular tone without giving more fluids in this phase. So you could, based on these simple assessments, the other side of the coin, from capillary refill time, from a hemodynamic point of view, taking into account pulse pressure and diastolic blood pressure, take initial decisions in the ICU when the patient is admitted with septic shock, either go to fluids, fluid responsiveness assessment, or either go to norepinephrine or adjustments, etc. And this could, of course, provide a more rational physiological approach to resuscitation, and let's say contribute to avoid the risk of over-resuscitation, fluid accumulation, give one-size-fits-all resuscitation strategy with fluids, etc. So this was the thought in Andromeda Shock 2. We just finished recruitment on that one, 1,500 patients. The results will be presented in Munich in the ESICM Congress in Munich in late October this year. But then we thought, okay, this is true, but imagine if Andromeda 2 is positive, and then everybody will start using pulse pressure, diastolic, this basic hemodynamic phenotyping to let's say rationalize and personalize initial resuscitation in the ICU. But what are the limitations of this assumption that pulse pressure represents a stroke volume? And then probably many confounders, no? Physiological and clinical, for example, even the position of the arterial line, their sinus rhythm versus AFib, patients, old patients versus young patients, have different probably compliance in the arterial system, vasopressor doses, patients, I already told, patients with different conditions, sepsis, ARDS, post-neuro patients, post-cardiovascular patients, intubated versus not, sedated versus not, spontaneous breathing, etc. Different contexts. In what are the determinants or the limitations or confounders about this relationship? In other words, how can you reliably say, for example, you have a normal pulse pressure, you can rule out stroke volume to take in it, low stroke volume to take initial decision. And this we don't know. We don't know which are the limitations, in which cases you can say, okay, this is okay, we can start working with this pulse pressure, assuming that it represents stroke, and others not because the patient has AP, blah, 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 blah. We don't know this. There is no major big epidemiological study to do this, to take this into account in your decision, and this is the objective of Andromeda Pegasus. It is it's a worldwide study, it's an epidemiological study, it's a cross-sectional study, but it will be where a patient will be recruited in 1 week or 2 weeks, and according to the decision of the own center, I mean the center, where in small centers they will probably go for 2 weeks just to recruit more patients, favoring the exchange of patients in the small unit, maybe even not consecutive weeks. In big centers with 80 beds, maybe 1 week is enough. And then the size of the team, that the research team can be also, maybe in a small center you can have 2 or 3 people, and then in a big center you may need much more medical operators. You can have parallel teams to increase the rate of recruitment. So we thought we need this study. It's a big study, and it is very important because I have another data to share, is that a recent study published by the UK centers showed that only 15% of the patients received an echo in the first hour after ICU admission in UK. Imagine this in medium, low income countries, etc. So this means that many decisions, initial decisions of resuscitation, are can be taken by this basic hemodynamic variable that can be just assessed or just addressed by looking at the monitor. I mean, this is the simplicity of this, and of course, this is very important. I think I have to highlight that Pegasus is a worldwide study. In fact, we have already 10 centers in Latin America, including Mexico. North America is Canada and the US, 16 centers in Europe, even Eastern Europe, Western Europe, even up to, let's say, Sweden in the north, etc. So we have a lot of centers in Europe. And then also in Asia, we have 9 centers, big countries like China, Japan, India, South Korea are represented there, and Malaysia, and also in the Middle East, and also more recently, 3 continents. And recently, we are now incorporating Libya in the north of Africa. So we will have 4 continents. This means that we will have at the end, these are the centers, you see, very diverse, and this will, of course, help us a lot with the external validity of this. And we will have 37, 38 countries represented with more than 200 centers, more than 2,000 patients. This is sponsored or endorsed by 4 societies: the ESICM, CEDAR, from Spain, LIVEN, the Research Network in Latin America, and BRICNET, the Research Network in Brazil. And this is how it is organized: a steering committee which overviews the study and designed the study protocol. There was, anecdotally, there were a lot of discussions in the steering committee before that, because some people said, okay, let's accept only patients with sinus rhythm, but finally prevailed the view that we have to include all kinds of patients, mechanical ventilated or not, with arrhythmia or not, old or young, etc., different contexts. So we have enough data to make subgroup studies and try to find the best, try to find really the limitation confounders in different contexts. And then the coordinating center, which is very small, where Eduardo Catán, me, and others, and we are in contact with the national coordinators in all these countries, and through him or her with the centers. But in some countries, they have only isolated center. We have a direct contact with that one. And as you know, during the recruitment week, the patient will, for each patient, the paper CRF will be filled in, and then this has to be transferred to the electronic database. And then this is a Castor EDC system that will be stored in Erasmus Rotterdam under the supervision of Professor Jan Bakker. And then at the end of the study, when we have collected all the data of all the centers, there is no limit. Some centers will recruit 4 patients, other 6, other 20, other 40, whatever. And then at the end, this data will be transferred to HCORE, our big institute of research in Sao Paulo, which has been valuable, extremely valuable in Andromeda shock studies, the previous studies, and to make the statistical analysis and start working on the paper. The national coordinators have a role, of course. They have to coordinate and aid all the centers in the country to get approval, IRB approval or whatever approval they require. They will require with informed consent or not. It depends on the IRB, the local IRBs, because this is a strictly observational study. And then meet the PIs of the country, explain them the spirit and the law of the study, and focus on the processes, motivate, enhance recruitment, etc. This is the role of the national coordinator, which are in contact with the central coordinating office. And here we can expand that the role of the PIs. Each center has a principal investigator. This PI has to set up the research team and define roles. He has to, when he sets up his team, he has to, let's say, put this into a delegation log, which includes the data entry, emails for platform access. What do I mean? I will stop transiently let's say, I will share another document, which is here, show you some examples of delegation logs. What do I mean? This is a delegation log from a very important center in Colombia, the center of Professor Gustavo Espina. And you see in this The delegation log is very simple. You put the name of the center, and then in this case, despite it is a big unit, he put only three names, three investigators. All the investigators that are here will be appear in the investigators list at the in the main paper after this, and this post hoc analysis, blah blah blah, and will be appear in PubMed, etc. And we will make at the end of the study a ranking of the best recruiters, and then these PIs will also have the opportunity to appear as front authors in enhancing the visibility of the center, etc. And then he put here this an example, PI, Gustavo, and there are two people that are medical operators and data entry, meaning medical operator are both physicians will be as a couple in the week of the recruitment. They will be in the ICU from Monday to Friday in the morning, just assessing patients that are fulfill the inclusion and exclusion criteria, and then they will recruit and enter all the data in a paper CRF. And then after this week or 2 weeks are finished, they will transfer all this paper CRF to the PI. The PI has the responsibility to look each of these files and let's say check for missing data, aberrant data, and ensure the completeness of the data. And because this is very important, he has to, let's say, approve each file of each patient. And then when it is done, after the week of the study, in the next weeks, someday, he will transfer the files to the data entry guy. What means this? The data entry, the guy that has been assigned the role of data entry, he will have the responsibility to upload the data to the electronic CRF, which is a mirror of the paper CRF. It's simple. It's very simple. We try to produce the simplest CRF as possible. And then only meaningful data, only data that we need for the papers, analysis, etc. And this data entry guy, when we receive this delegation log submitted to us by the national coordinator, we will, in less than 24 hours, resend to the data entry people, to Gustavo in this case and Nicolas, a password and a privileged access to the electronic CRM, password protected. And then he will be able to enter, blah, 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 and upload the data in proper time. And then also, we will provide at that time a video about how to upload the data in this database. And there is a test. When you enter the database, electronic one, and you can enter the test access where you can practice all this uploading. We will provide also a manual of operation for uploading data. And when the study started, you can be live, and then you can then enter and start uploading the data. That can take you 1, 2, or 3 days, whatever. It doesn't matter because we have plenty of time from May to October. This is the data entry guy. And the couple. The guys in the couple, this couple of operators, they will be, one of them had the role of performing the echo, and the other one assessing the pulse pressure and other variables that are requested in the CRF, and together and simultaneously. How I envision this? We will request the centers to practice a lot. Practice. When you are already approved by your ARB and you will have received all the manual of operation, videos of how to assess pulse pressure and stroke volume and BTI, the surrogate, in a standardized way, etc. You will have to practice the velocity, the rigor of assessing this in simultaneously, attend inspiration, averaging 3 assessments in sinus rate, 5 in non-sinus rhythm, and then practicing. And when you have done this in the night shift, you can practice. And then at some point you will say, okay, we are ready. Then under the surveillance of the PI, they will say, okay, when do we do this? And they say, okay, let's say imagine first week of June, and then you can, if you decide for 2 weeks, you can be consecutive or in different month. For example, first week of June, first week of July, in centers with allow exchange of patients, or consecutive, or just 1 week, depends on you. And then the size of the team depends on you. You have 100 beds and you want to maximize recruitment, then you probably need more teams. And then at this morning, in the morning of the study, let's say, and the study will be performed and recruitment from Monday to Friday in working hours, in the mornings maybe. And you start on Monday morning, and you start with people who already are in the ICU, not fresh patient. Patient can be there from the past week, etc. And then they have an arterial line. The only thing is they have to have an arterial line. And then you assess this patient in a static way. So you fill in the CRF, you ask permission, in consent or not, blah, blah, blah. And then you perform this parallel assessment of BDI and pulse pressure, and fill in all the data. And then the next patient and the next. See, if you have too many patients with arterial line from the previous week, you may take even Monday to Tuesday to fill in all these patients in the static part. And then maybe, I don't know, of course, you will see from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you will have no new patient, and then you are done. But you have to be available, because eventually the attending physician on shift will decide on a fluid challenge or fluid bolus, or a passively rising maneuver, and then you have to be available just to, in this patient that you already have in static values, you go and then you assess the let's say, maneuver, pre-fluid bolus, pre-passively rising, and after, immediately after, so to have a dynamic view now of the relationship in different contexts. They have asked me how long can you take to perform this maneuver. To be honest, we don't put any limit on this in the protocol. I mean, the shortest you can, but taking good measurement. This is particularly, I mean, in the static assessment, you can take your time in the pre-maneuver, also in the post-maneuver. Maybe try to make it shorter just to not lose the impact of the maneuver. I mean, but there is no limit. So you can have a static in 100% of your recruited patient, and eventually in some of them, some maneuver, if you capture this maneuver. This is very important. I mean, this is why this is an observational study. No. A maneuver is decided thinking in the protocol. No way. It's decided by the attending physician that decided to perform a fluid challenge, blah, blah, blah. And you take advantage of that one and assess dynamically. There are very small units in Latin America, for example, where there's a couple of physicians only interested on this, and then they cannot separate let's say the positions that they are two. For example, Gustavo and Nicolas are the team, the medical operator, but one of them is on shift in the ICU, so he will have a double role that morning. And then if, for example, Nicolas says, okay, this patient needs a fluid challenge, he decides thinking in the patient, and then he calls his colleague, Gustavo, let's do pre and post, etc. This can wait. Ideally, the research team should be separated from the guys that are on shift. But it depends on, in the center. So this is an example of delegation log, and you can have, of course, more situations. There are some centers, just a small example here. Let's see. Let's see. Sorry. Here, delegation log. Here, for example, this one. This one has many features with different, it depends on we put no limits ourselves on this. It's the investigator who decides, according to the size of the beds, etc., how many patients they. So this is the thing. And another mission of the PI is to check the data, because I will emphasize this. Because as a difference with Andromeda 1 and 2, especially Andromeda 2, which was a very complex protocol, we don't have an external team as a, let's say, as looking for the data quality, register, etc., or performance, or protocol adherence, violations, blah, blah, blah. So this means that the PI has to check, and check all the CRFs on paper from either there are 4 patients, 10 patients, 20 patients, etc. And then okay, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay. I'm filling all the gaps. And then the patient will be uploaded. This is no hurry. See, you can do this. The uploading the data entry guy can do this in 1 week and two. I mean, one by one, with calm, to not commit mistakes, because we cannot monitor this process. We cannot. You will receive no query, no question, nothing, because we don't have the human resources to do that. So all the responsibility of this, the quality check, that accuracy, it depends on the PI. So this is very important to realize and to have into account. Here I emphasize this. We ask the centers also to take snapshots with the mobile phone of the BDI imaging. So then this will be uploaded to make, for part of our part, some random audit of the quality of the images, etc., of the process. But this is just a detail, no? I mean, this is what you have to do in terms of the completing the data. We don't care for a lot of amount of patients. We want to have many patients in different contexts: spontaneous breathing, sedated, ARDS, shock septic shock, neurocrit, whatever. Everything is useful to make subgroup analysis, etc., about the reliability, the limitation, the confounders, in this relationship in different contexts. We need this. But we have to privilege quality over quantity to do this well. And we will have one of our members, Eduardo Catan, will be totally immediately available for WhatsApp contact to in any doubt, okay, when you let's say to help in any way. We try to do this simple. The CRF is simple. We produce a manual of operation which explains into detail all the things that I said. From Zygniew and Silvia Ramos, we produced 2 small videos to try to standardize the assessment of BTI and pulse pressure. We will provide a video on how to upload data in the electronic CRF. This will be done by Eduardo Catan one of these days, etc. And you will receive all this material, like this YouTube channel. No, we require no formal echo training by the PIs, etc., by the medical operators. And when you can start recruiting, first we are ready from the part of us. We already recruitment started yesterday in Budapest and Montreal, and then many centers around the world will enter the next weeks. When the team is ready, meaning they send to us the delegation log via national coordinator, and we checked and it's okay, we will send to the data entry the access to the electronic CRF, and then we will say green light together with the national coordinator, and then you will be able to decide, okay, this week or that week to perform the study. and then you are okay. When you finish, it's okay. This study doesn't require follow-up of the page, so this is great, and it's very simple in that way, very valuable in the meaning what we are going to get from this, of course. And there are many post hoc potential post hoc ancillary studies. Some have been suggested. For example, we ask the center that which to do this to in parallel to the pulse pressure assessment in the monitor via the arterial line. They can perform an non-invasive blood pressure assessment, try to compare both. Some the data will be go to machine learning to define phenotypes. Some centers will perform transesophageal echo, blah, 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 blah. And we have some crosstalk with the Phoenicia 2 study. There are many things that are interesting in the background that, as you will see. So this is essentially what I wanted to emphasize for centers. Maybe most of this info is already known by you. It is no novelty. It is, I mean, but I don't want to mean offense, etc. But it's important to remark some aspects. And then we are very happy. I have to express my gratitude for all the centers, countries that are participating in this study that it's with no, let's say, economic intention or budget, just the passion and the things. And there below the let's say the disclosed intention of the scientific objective, the other thing is that we want to build up an international network of investigators from different continents, etc., that can be contacted and we can provide a sort of platform for being recruited for uh, highly complex studies like Andromeda 2, for example, medium complex like this one, or low complexity studies like survey studies, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, we have, this will be great because these investigator-generated networks are the future probably in many aspects. So we are extremely grateful to everybody. And I say hello. And if you have doubts about this, any other doubt, please contact me and we will address. Thank you. Bye-bye.